moving right along, okay, in the cardiovascular system, we are on to the next topic. We are going to talk right now about blood vessels and circulation. Okay, so let's get started and see what we have to learn. So first, remember that the cardiovascular system includes the heart, the blood, and the blood vessels, and it's a closed system, meaning it is not connected to the outside environment unless, obviously, you have a wound, okay? So, but what we're going to stress here is there are actually two separate closed systems. There's the pulmonary and the systemic circulation, and both of them begin and end with the heart, but they're their own systems within the pathway. Okay. A lumen, or the lumen, is the empty space in a blood vessel through which the blood actually flows. Excuse me. Other things have a lumen as well. So like your digestive system, the open space. So it's the empty space. But as far as we're talking about now, it's within a blood vessel. And blood vessels have three layers to remember, and it's a lot of terms, so I apologize. There's the tunica externa, also called the tunica adventitia. And that is the connective tissue on the outside, and it's made of mostly elastin and collagen, and it's going to attach the blood vessels to the tissue. So your blood vessels aren't just like willy-nilly sliding all over the place, okay? And then we have the tunica media, middle, muscle. Again, easy. So tunica media is the smooth muscle layer. It's the thickest layer in most of the blood vessels, although in some it's thicker than others, okay? So middle layer, muscle, media. Tunica media, middle, muscle. And then we have the tunica interna or tunica intima. Now notice those both start with I, and interna sounds like internal. So the I is the inside. So, and that is a simple squamous epithelium, and it has some connective tissue in terms of a basement membrane as well. But this lines the inside of the blood vessels. Okay. So externa, outside, external, also named adventitia. I don't have a trick to remember that. Media, middle muscle, media, middle muscle. And then interna, inside, I, interna, inside, intima, I, inside. Okay. So here you can see the tunica intima, that thin layer of simple squamous epithelium, the media, the muscle layer in the middle, and the adventitia or externa, the outside layer. And you can see that space in the middle. So right here, just as I pull this up really quickly, right here, oops, this is the lumen, the empty space. Okay, that's the lumen, the empty space. So arteries. Arteries, away. Arteries carry blood away from the heart, either away to the lungs or away to the body, depending which ventricle it's pumping out of. From the right ventricle, it's going to go out to the lungs. From the left ventricle, it's going to go out to the body. In arteries, the tunica media is the thickest layer, and it provides support for the vessel, but also changes the vessel diameter to regulate blood flow. So it's why you can feel your pulse, okay? So again, the media in arteries is the thickest, and the lumen, as a result, is a little on the smaller side. So remember, pulse, rhythmic dilation of an artery due to the beating of the heart. Use two fingers, right? Not your thumb. Don't use your thumb, use two fingers, okay? And then here's the most common location, the radial artery, and we measure that in beats per minute, okay? Veins. Veins carry blood back to the heart, either from the body back to the heart, from the superior and inferior vena cava to the heart. So that's going to be to the right atrium, or coming back from the lungs back to the heart, and that would go into the left atrium. The tunica externa and tunica media are thinner than in arteries, which means the walls got thinner, but the lumen got bigger. So veins have the largest lumen. So in fact, about 60% of all our blood is in veins at any moment. And veins, as you can see in this little animation, have valves to prevent backflow. All right, so here again, you can see an illustration of the veins having valves. You can see that the muscles of our body, just our muscles, help to push the blood through the veins and get it back to the heart. Okay, so you can see 60% of our blood at any moment is going to be in veins, a small amount in the heart, smallest amount in capillaries, and then you're going to have some in pulmonary or systemic blood vessels. The capillaries are the smallest blood vessels. They are the most numerous. Okay? They are one cell layer thick, which means no tunica externa adventitia, no tunica media, only tunica intima or tunica interna. Okay? Why? Because diffusion has to happen here at the capillaries. Okay, so one cell layer thick allows that diffusion to happen, which means nutrients can get into the tissues and waste can get out of the tissues and get into the capillaries. Okay, so capillaries are the site of diffusion. So what's going to happen is a big, huge aorta, largest blood vessel, about the size of a garden hose coming out your heart. And then those blood vessels are going to branch and get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until eventually it's a capillary. So here's the arteries, which get smaller into arterioles. And then eventually it's capillaries. And then on the other side, still capillaries, but those are going to join together, form venules, and then the veins. Okay, so the arteries branch smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until they're at capillaries. And then the veins get bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, so that's the process. Okay, so again, arteries away from the heart, veins to the heart, capillaries for diffusion. Arteries have the very thick tunica media, right? That's the pulse. The vein has the largest lumen. Okay, here you can see again a representation, the difference in the size of the lumen between an artery and a vein, and the difference in the thickness of the walls between an artery and a vein. Artery, thick walls, smaller lumen. Vein, thinner walls, larger lumen. And then capillary, real tiny, smallest blood vessels. All right, vasodilation. Vasodilation means dilation or widening of blood vessels. This causes a decrease in our blood pressure. So why might this happen? In warm temperatures, when you're exercising, sometimes it's a side effect of medication we're taking. Also, if you're eating spicy foods, also alcohol can be a trigger. Those are not the only ones, but those are things that can cause vasodilation. So it's increasing blood flow in your capillaries in particular. So a lot of times your face will get red and warm. Sometimes it's to release excess heat. Vasoconstriction. Okay, vasoconstriction means constriction or narrowing of the blood vessels, and that serves to increase blood pressure. So it's going to be the opposite. So I'm going to try to conserve heat or conserve blood flow. So sometimes it happens in cold temperatures. Also, medication side effects can cause this. It can happen with fluid loss. So you might have a wound or a burn. It might be from vomiting or diarrhea, but when your body needs to conserve blood flow. All right, coronary circulation. So here's something else, maybe a little interesting to think about. The blood in the heart doesn't do anything to nourish the heart. Or just like the vessel, the vehicle to move that blood around. So there are special arteries called coronary arteries, and they supply the blood directly to the heart tissue itself. And you can see in this illustration, I'm going to point it out right here. Okay, oops. Let's go back there. Okay. Here we go. So right here and here, let's just swap the color out here so it shows up a little bit better. You can see these blood vessels branching out. This is the aorta. So you can see that immediately when the aorta forms coming from the heart from the left ventricle, you have coronary arteries coming out right away. Why? Well, if the heart doesn't get blood supply, well, it's not going to be pumping. Okay, so it's really important. So coronary arteries are going to bring the blood to the heart, and then they're going to meet up again. That artery, smaller, 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 smaller capillaries, bigger, 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 bigger veins. Okay, and then the coronary veins are going to empty right into the right atrium. Okay, so the left ventricle, remember, that has to pump the blood through the whole body, so it needs the most blood flow. So again, the heart in the blood, the blood in the heart does not nourish the heart at all. We need the coronary circulation for the heart tissue itself to get nutrients and get rid of wastes. Okay, so there we have coronary circulation. You can see all those blood vessels on the outside of the heart, providing it with nutrients. Then we have systemic, like the system, our whole body. Okay, so it goes from the heart to the body, from the body back to the heart. Okay, so from the heart out the aorta to the whole body, and then back to the heart through the superior and inferior vena cava. Remember that exchange of materials happens at capillaries. Okay, so systemic circulation is heart, body, heart, heart, body, heart. Okay. Pulmonary circulation is another closed system loop, and it goes from the heart to the lungs, and then from the lungs back to the heart. So when I go from the heart to the lungs, that's the deoxygenated blood. It needs to pick up oxygen and then come back to the heart. So pulmonary circulation is heart, lungs, heart, heart, lungs, heart. Okay. So here you can see pulmonary and systemic circulation. Again, it's important to know the oxygenated and deoxygenated parts of it. So in pulmonary, deoxygenated leaves the heart, goes to the lungs, oxygenated comes back to the heart. It's going to be the opposite in the body. Deoxygenated comes to the heart, goes to the body, and then deoxygenated comes back to the heart. And there you have it. There's an overview and description of blood vessels and circulation. So hope you learned something, and there'll be more coming.